Hey, Sean, I know obviously you talked some about Dan and Ben Johnson yesterday. I'm curious when you're facing an offense that's as balanced as they've been and can be explosive both running and passing, where does your mind go just in terms of sort of first and foremost what you need to do well against a team that can hurt, defenses in a lot of ways?
Well, look, a good offense has that balance, and these guys obviously commit to running the ball well and the ability then off play action or drop back. So it's not just one thing. In other words, somehow or another, you have to affect the quarterback, number one, because there are enough weapons when you look at the runners, the tight end, the receiver. And then number two, your early down efficiency, getting to those third downs that are more favorable, I think. So it's not one thing, and it's not like an easy thing, but you have to have some mixed looks. These guys do a great job of packaging plays at the line of scrimmage, and they'll have a menu of 3 or 4 different plays. They'll run a shift, and then you'll see Golf reset and kind of signal what play he wants based on the information he's seeing defensively. So it's a little cat and mouse game.
Go ahead, Zach.
Coach, you just touched on defensive third down efficiency. You guys, since week 6, have the best third down defense in the NFL. What's the key to that?
Well, I would say it starts with the ability to speed the clock up. If the quarterback, when we all used to play football in the streets, we'd have 3 Mississippi or 4 Mississippi rush, or I'm not sure. But if you can get it to 2.5 Mississippi, in other words, he's having to get rid of the ball quicker. Obviously, that helps the back end. So between the coverage on the back end and then the ability to speed the clock up for the quarterback.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, Sean, you were talking yesterday about details and those yellow lines you have for the splits. I was wondering, did you find your team, your offense, it took a while to kind of pick things up to where they were playing and not thinking?
I wouldn't say that's the case necessarily. I mean, look, we're trying to find, what are the things that we do well with each player and put them in those positions. It's not this overly complex, system, but it's really catering the system relative to, our protection, the strengths of our offensive line, the quarterback, the receivers, and so I think it's the reps and the matchups that we're looking to, especially on third down.
Go ahead, Brandon.
Hey, Sean, assuming that PJ Locke and Jaquan McMillan and guys their size didn't grow up rushing the passer, is there kind of an art or, I don't know, an innate ability to be able to come off the edge when you send DBs blitzing?
I think timing is important. I think disguise is important. You guys have seen plenty of defensive backs blitz over the years. And if the defensive back is a tick late at all, just count his steps to the quarterback. So when the safety comes at the middle of the snap count from 5 yards depth, I don't worry about him because he's going to take 12 steps before he gets to the QB, even if he's unblocked. And the quarterback's probably either 3 or 5 steps and throwing the ball. Now, there's a sense of urgency when there's pressure, but the great pressure players at safety, and I'm going to bring up a player that played here, was as good as I've seen ever, was Dawkins. And I saw him for 4 years in Philly and then in Dallas. And if you count his steps to the quarterback, it was always 5 or less. In other words, he was on you now, and that was timing, disguise, anticipation. We're playing in Detroit. The leg goes up with the silent snap count, and all the studies that you need to, in other words, compared to the young guy that doesn't really know better, and he holds the look and blitzes, but he's coming from a position where within 2.5 seconds, I'm going to beat it every time. So I think there's some football savvy in there somewhere, if that makes sense at all.
Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, Coach, Chargers last week and then Lions again this week go for it a lot on fourth down. Does that change anything about the preparation in terms of how you account for that? And does it impact you in terms of, you've talked before about some games taking points, some games maybe going for it? Does it change things for you at all as a decision maker?
I think let's start with me relative to how to play this game. You know, if we feel like we're in this game and the points are, you know, if it becomes a game where it's higher scoring, that's one thing. And then certainly you're paying attention to how your defense is matching up. Now, to your first question, look, Dan's going to be aggressive. I said that in the kicking game. And he'll be, if he's got confidence in his offense on fourth down, he'll treat it the same way. And then I'll have an approach based on how we start this game and then paying attention to how it's going. So, all right, one more question.
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah. Hey, Sean, when you guys were 1-5 and you apparently mentioned to the team about the Lions coming back from 1-6, was that just a passing reference to them? And also, did you use any other examples back then, since there have been 4 teams that have started out 1-5 and made the playoffs?
It wasn't about playoffs. It was, I used the Lions because it was recent and relevant, because they were 1-6. They flipped the script. We studied the pre and post turnaround data, which was turnover driven. And even though they won the last game of the year, I remember covering it for Fox, they were eliminated before that game. And they still went out and beat the Packers. The point I'm making is that then propelled them into this year. And so at 1-6 a year ago, finished at 9-8, and then, you know, throughout this season. And so it was important. And so look, at 1-5, you still, you know, the number one thing is a team you have to have is hope and a vision and an understanding and a belief. And I think that, to credit our locker room, it was an example. It wasn't because I knew Dan. It was a team, though, that had just been in our position and rolled up their sleeves and went to work. And that's what you have to do in this league. So anyway, appreciate it. We'll see you guys later on.